Welcome everybody to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into another episode. I am your host, Pauly DC, and let's get into another one of these things. Today, I will review Red Hood and the Outlaws Vol.2. It was titled The Starfire, and it was written by Scott Lobdell with art by Kenneth, Rocafort, and Timothy Green II, with issues 8 to 14 being released between June and December of 2012. In Volume 1 of this series, the fairly fresh out of the grave Jason Todd, or Red Hood, teamed up alongside old friend Roy Harper, aka Arsenal, and Princess Coriander, better known as Starfire, thus creating a trio of outlaw heroes with the former second Robin leading them. Things left off in the last book showing a past foe of Jay's named Susie Sue waking up in Gotham City and ready to declare full-on war with him, so let's find out what that's all about. Issue number 8 opens on Jason telling a story about his past interaction with the 7 crime families of Hong Kong, massacring them all after extorting them. Well, that's certainly a story. No mask yet, just a barely 20-year-old kid taking cuts from a foreign country's underworld to fund his new life before murdering them with zero hindrance. And why would he spare Susie Sue and her dad of all people from the Fang, Steelgate, and Flaming Swan clans? That's just stupid. Things don't get much better as the still-alive Susie from Volume 1 was shipped to a Gotham hospital over any in Asia where she was shot, and now is holding the entire place hostage, including kids with a handful of mercs. This would surely garner Batman's attention, but Red Hood is demanded instead, so Corey and Roy make easy work of the goons, cracking skulls with arrows and incinerating them. I feel like they would have shot Roy in the face the second he was spotted, but that's just me. Jay, meanwhile, gets his hands full very quick, with Susie Sue crashing through an elevator shaft like that giant evil sloth from the House of the Dead 3 video game, causing the whole thing to break apart. Starfire winds up catching the broken machine, though saving the two from going splat. Say what you want, Miss Sue, your fat wouldn't have saved you. Just a much bigger mess would have been created. Red Hood then shows an impressive feat of strength and finally dispatches of her for good. Well, that was pretty quick, and the reason is because our trio are then ready to leave Gotham until the big Night of the Owls Alfred call comes in, and how could Tim Drake know the Outlaws were listening if he didn't even make the event? I don't know, and I don't care. Hearing Drake's voice, though, actually takes Jay back to a couple months ago when the two met up to exchange intel to help kick off their respective series. Tim gave some stuff on smugglers, and he got info on Cassie Sandsmark, aka Wonder Girl. Also, if my memory is correct, Jason was firmly dead before Tim became Robin, so as of this moment, we don't really know how these two even became friendly. Issue number 9 has this title's Night of the Owls tie-in, which was a pretty good one, showing us Mr. Freeze's cryotechnology was involved in the Court of Owls' Talon reanimation process, and he doesn't appreciate being used like that. Either way, Arsenal, Starfire, and Red Hood have to subdue him and a Talon with the last name Long, which is Chinese for dragon. Maybe a great-eared nightjar would have been a better bird for him than an owl. Issue number 10 starts up a 4-part story beginning with Jason on a date alongside Isabel, the flight attendant, first seen in one of the first issues. Things are then interrupted by a big alien being tossed out of a building because he was lurking on Corey and Roy in bed. Yeah, anyway, this also sends Jay into Red Hood mode, and he seems way too nonchalant on the whole secret ID thing. The fighting stops pretty quickly though after it's realized by Starfire that this is her old friend Orn, who looks to be an albino version of the Citadel race, who were the ones that took her prisoner as a child. And he goes on to say the planet Tamaran is in serious danger. Corey agrees to help, also allowing Jay and Roy to tag along so they get transported to a spaceship called the Starfire. Yes, our leading gal used to be a full-on Star Trek captain type, and this is her former vessel which she took her alias from. Oh, Isabel also gets beamed in for this adventure, but it's barely important. We next meet Corey's first mate, DePaulo, who belongs to the Dominator race, plus Navigator and fellow Tamaranian K-10. Other crew members are seen here but are not given names. DePaulo then goes on to explain the malignant alien species called the Blight are responsible for attacking Tamaran now and are already thoroughly inside, meaning Corey has time for a single warning to them as their huge fleet of defense ships are approached. Surrender right now. Issue number 11 begins on Arsenal being a POW, getting tortured by the Blight, and with all the bodily harm we've already seen Roy endure, this torture is a little league to him. Regardless, let's see how he got here, because apparently he was ditched by his friends. Well, Jay was calling him an arse earlier. For starters, we don't even get to see the big spaceship battle, just destruction in Corey's path. True. Then we're whisked back to before the unseen fight, with a chunk of Starfire's New 52 origin being spoken on due to her ambivalence to even protect Tamaran, since no one fought for her when she was traded for the planet's freedom all those years ago. That's kinda fair. Clearly she wasn't a slave for long though, having befriended other prisoners who now make up her crew, and they rebelled, which then turned into them going on multiple galaxy-wide adventures, and years later she returned to Tamaran, finding out her queen sister Commander, who hardly had a choice to give her up to the Citadel all those years ago as well, never forgave herself for that. Believe me when I say these two have a rough history since their creations. Trust me. While this has been happening, Isabel is nicely chatting with Orn and then finds Jason to mention he lied about being in real estate, but I thought he told you he owned a dry cleaning business in an earlier issue. Those two things don't exactly jive. Whatever. On the last page, Roy is suspected of stalling with this story, so his could-be sister-in-law arrives to elicit proper information. And if you know anything about the Commander character, you'll be aware that it's nearly obligatory to write her as the hotter, naughty older sister type. She's also called Blackfire and was created by Marv Wolfman and George Perez in the New Teen Titans number 22, August 1982. For issue number 12, the art changes hands to Timothy Green II and first features a brooding Corey because the Blight War is not over yet and the pre-Left Behind Roy is trying to cheer her up in poor fashion. DePaulo then asks for a minute of Corey's time so he can beat around the bush regarding her dating Roy. He basically finds it disturbing, and over in another room, Jason is still with Isabel, who calls herself Hot here, which was pretty weird. Arsenal next shows why he took that alias, figuring out how to keep the ship's shielding systems on point, except no one can hardly even give him props before a Blight infiltration team sneaks aboard trying to use a teleport beam to steal Corey, but they get Roy instead, explaining how he's now at Commander's feet, who thinks it's even more beyond disturbing that he is sleeping with her sister than DePaulo. Oh boy, let the insults fly. It's also seen here that Calm is as much of a prisoner as her people, according to the Blight, so Arsenal says not for long, grabbing her into position for an instant transport back to the Starfire. Don't ask me how that's possible, but this was all planned with Roy wanting to be captured. The two sisters from Tamaran then take a moment to talk, with Commander tearfully speaking about all the hardships Corey had to face and almost cannot believe that she came back to help. However, now they must fight together. The following scene is kinda ominous, with the Blight in full enslavement mode of the Tamaranians, but then one of the higher-ups from this rotten race walks into a room where two sick and dying humans are, with the male being addressed as Colonel, and he was here because of something called the 13. Surely more info could have been given on that, but the guy is killed after saying that. Anyway, Roy and Jay are seen talking a bit more serious than usual, with Green Arrow's former protege saying he found that said hero in a bloody mess one time, which I'm very unsure as to what he's referring to. Corey then joins them, with Calm getting ready to mount their assault, and why would she call them ladies here? She's one of the last people I'd think would use the female term as an insult. Issue number 13 brings this story arc to a close, with us first seeing the Blight High Lord rally his troops for the upcoming battle. Should have done that like half an hour ago and been ready for attacks by now, because Corey and Calm enter Tamaran unhindered to begin the fighting in Beyond Blazing Manor, with Red Hood, Arsenal, and Orn getting in on the action as well, making sure the Blight backup is useless. During all of that excitement, DePaulo is seen still aboard the Starfire along with K-10, who gets a little Terminator reference into Isabel due to them leaving the ship. Why is that? Well, skipping back a few hours, Corey is shown with him remembering when she decided to leave her crew for Earth on a Voyager spaceship, which looks a lot smaller here compared to the one in Volume 1, but anywho, the two are discussing DePaulo's choice to go full out Randy Quaid Independence Day, or if you're under 25, using the Starfire self-destruct sequence to sacrifice himself while taking out the Blight mothership, which is watched by everyone else in the ensuing pages and unfortunately distracting Commander long enough for the Blight High Lord to send a spear through her stomach. A truly terrible decision due to it sending Corey into a massive solar energy supernova, eviscerating most of the Blight, and as for the High Lord, he gets a fiery kiss, thus disintegrating him. Okay then. A week later, a recovering Calm asks Corey in pleading manner to stay on Tamaran since she too is aware of this 13 group, but her sister ultimately decides to stay with her new team. Issue number 14 concludes this book with the art switching again, this time to Pascal Alexi, and the first person to be viewed is the one and only Superman, paying the Outlaws a visit in deep space while they head back to Earth on the Starfire. Apparently Corey is the one of interest, and damn, Supes must really have super hearing to catch what Roy said, considering there's no sound in space. Also during this, Jay's narration showed that he's extremely wary of Superman, yet Batman actually once said that he trusts him. Anyway, the plan landed on to avoid Superman is transport teleportation, sending the main trio home, but 3 seconds later, Big Blue is right there like an eerie shadow. You're telling me he flew to Earth from Pluto and knew exactly where to find them that quickly? I feel like this is a minor stretch even for Superman when we remember Pluto is well over 5 billion kilometers away from our planet. After Corey then says Krypton was not friendly with Tamaran before its expiration, a fight breaks out and right away firmly shows that a Kryptonian is stronger than a Tamaranian. Since Red Hood is also pretty useless here, Arsenal's move is a special gas arrow that turns to silicon, which fills Superman's lungs. But his counter is revealing he can now raise his body temperature like a solar heater, and before things then get really ugly, Isabel pipes in as the voice of reason, suggesting the group talk it out. Her easing this battle was the only reason I haven't said her inclusion in this part of the story was completely useless. Superman does decide to handle things with a conversation, asking Starfire if she's ever encountered an alien named Hellspawn, who we will be seeing in Superman's Volume 2 plus a couple other series. Corey says she did briefly encounter a minion of his and sees right through Kal-El's stubbornness to ask her for help. However, the more interesting part that is spoken on here is Jason supposedly saving Superman's life while he was Robin. I demand to know what happened right now. The end of this issue is pretty major, but I'm just gonna get this out of the way first. Jay has made countless comments of how shit Gotham is and he'll never return, yet here he is choosing to stay. Fart noise. Isabel takes him home though for some steamy activity, and I am not talking about the shower. Halfway through the evening though, Jason suddenly senses that something's wrong tonight and exits the bathroom to find Isabel laid out unconscious, similar to Mr. Todd's mother, who he found OD'd as a child. A creepo reporter on the TV news comes on, calling himself Jack Napier, which was a call to one of the names that Joker has been given, meaning this is Red Hood and the O's start to the Death of the Family crossover, which is seen when Joker reveals himself at the same time as an aggressive-looking SWAT team busts inside. So that explains who we saw lurking around the trio's island in issue number 13, stealing a Red Hood before they even left Tamaran. There was a mini side story in this book featuring Jason's old girlfriend Essence, aka the very powerful being from Volume 1 that was once untitled and then all cast with her mom, Dukra. She is summoned to the site of her uncle, an evil untitled member who is now in possession of something called the Life Hammer, and he kills an innocent cop to get it. Essence makes fast work of his goons, turning them to bones, but her uncle was anticipating this and sets her up for an ambush. Essence gets blasted by the Life Hammer, and I thought, why would the last goon here ask the untitled savage to politely part ways? Run, you idiot. Anyhow, Essence launches her offensive, mentioning her people bathed in the Well of Sins, which is quite important. Also that the All-Cast created the Life Hammer, so it's no good against her, and with just a touch, her power is showcased, burning Uncle Untitled into blue dust. As for the Life Hammer, it too melts in her hands, so she disappears into the next time this series needs her. Alright. I want to begin with dialogue for this one because that's what I believe held back the whole first 3-volume run. It's not all that bad, don't get me wrong. The main trio had their moments, Roy showing he's not just some court jester of a hero, Corey showed her true warrior side, and with the Jensen Ackles voice I think of when reading Jason's speech, it's hard to criticize. Yes, I'm biased because Red Hood is my favorite former Robin. Other than that, the stuff we get is, I don't like to say basic, but yeah, it's just there. The borderline childish sex jokes are what I kind of just shook my head at. The mature with the humor balance really never seemed to mesh is the best way I can bottom line it. I'll go into the art next, and as I review more books with Kenneth Rocafort's work, creative ways to say how much I like it will be needed each time. The Night of the Owls issue by him specifically had some gorgeous pages, plus his rendition of Blackfire was some top tier stuff. As for the second half artwork, some of it to me looked a bit unfinished and Starfire's look got a little exuberant. While in the Superman issue, no one looks like they have a neck, and their faces are sort of oddly rotund. For the plot now, getting Jay to stay in Gotham could have been done more organically. Him just saying, because why not, was dumb. But besides that, this story was all about Corey and her sci-fi centric past. Again though, I said this in volume 1, more heroes coming in under an outlaw sense would have been great for this title, and one last thing, Jason being so casual with the secret ID was so dangerous to him and anyone he revealed it to, beyond irresponsible indeed. That's gonna wrap up this review though, and if you've watched until the end here, I want to personally thank you for that, and to please like, share, and subscribe. Please follow me on all my social media platforms, and to please join me next time for Batwing Volume 2.